Well, hello everybody. Welcome to this evening's webinar. We do a webinar about every month, and just want to say how excited I am tonight about bringing you a phenomenal topic about a lot of the kiddos and of course some of the adults that we take care of here in our office. And tonight's topic is going to be about the 3 types of ADHD children that we typically see in our office. What makes them unique and different? What makes them the same, how we know and how we measure, and then of course more importantly how we help them with the struggles that not only they have, but of course if they're having struggles, that means the family is struggling, that means the parents are struggling, because we all want those successes for our kiddos. So while we're giving everybody a chance to log on here tonight, I just want to say I'm excited to bring the topic. I want you to dig in with me. I want you to gain a really good understanding about who we are, what we're about, and how we help those kiddos who struggle so much in our practice. And then of course want to encourage you that if this message hits home with you tonight, number 1, knowledge is power, but knowledge is useless if you don't put it to action. So we want to give you a chance to take action on this information as well. And if that action is no more than just sharing it with somebody else who you know might be struggling, please make sure you do that. That way we can get these kids to the right people to get the right kind of help that they deserve. Because in our office, we expect miracles, and we expect miracles from our kiddos that come here. We expect miracles for the families that come here, because we know that they have a bright future ahead of them, and we want to make it that much brighter. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started tonight. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. There we go. And as I mentioned, this webinar is for you parents, and it's to understand your ADHD kiddos, your sensory processing kiddos. And I'm going to back up before we get into the common categories, because I want to say this, and hopefully this resonates with you. When we were younger, one of the first things we learned in elementary school and primary school is that we don't call people names. We have that sense here in our office as well. We don't care if there's a label. If you have in your gut this feeling that you know that your child could be better, then your child deserves to be checked, and your child needs to be taken care of appropriately. But many of you have already gone down the road of a lot of things all natural. You're trying to do things without medications. Then you get to that point where maybe we're going to go ahead and seek a specialist to give a diagnosis, and that diagnosis then comes in the form of ADD, ADHD, sensory processing, and then what I call the alphabet soup sometimes falls into play too. Any of those abbreviations, ODD, OCD, ASD, and right on down the line. And so I just want to make it really clear, we don't focus on a diagnosis. We focus on the individual child, because every child is unique. Every child needs the help that they need because of that uniqueness. But we do see that there are common categories in these kiddos, and I'm going to show you not only tonight what that looks like in some descriptive terms, but we're also going to talk about what that looks like in terms of some measurements that we can literally put to play and better understand the neurology that drives these diagnoses, that drives the ADHD kiddo, the sensory spectrum kiddo, the autism spectrum kiddo. And so hopefully by the end of this, you're going to have some answers. And when we have answers, then you can take the next steps, which is action. So we're going to jump right in. Let me see here. Going to pull up the next slide and talk about these labels. As I mentioned, kids come to us with enough labels already attached to them. Who am I to give them another label? So we're not going to focus on the label. We're going to focus on their uniqueness. And based on their uniqueness, we put together plans that are also unique to help them get through the challenges that they have and get right on to the goals that we as parents put forth for our kiddos, and of course they grow into. So with that, we're going to talk about the 3 most common categories that we see in our office. These are generally speaking, so by no means does your child have to check off all the boxes, but I know if you're watching this information and you're interested because you believe that your kiddo could be better, then I know this is going to resonate with you, and you're going to be able to understand exactly what we're saying. But one of my mentors, Dr. Tony Ebel, he came up with some of these terms, and I'll be honest, I think I fall into one of these categories as well, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But when we talk about these kiddos, we talk about them in terms of the raging bull, the drunken bull, or a combination of the two, the raging drunken bull. And when we look at the raging bull, You know, just as its name implies, think of bull in a china shop, very high energy. These are going to be the ADH. I emphasize the word H in this one, the hyperactive kiddos of ADHD. We then have the drunken bull. These are going to be the ones, as its name implies, have low organization, discoordination. You know, they're just not as coordinated as many of the other children, and we'll explain why that is the case. But in most instances, we're going to have children that fall somewhat into both of these categories. So we have the raging bull married with the drunken bull, which comes out as the raging drunken bull, which has the H portion of ADHD and the organization and tone of the drunken bull. Okay, so with that, we're going to expound on each of these just a little bit. And this is not going to be a long webinar because it's going to be really straightforward. So when we talk about that raging bull, high energy kiddo, what I want you to think of, and we use this analogy a lot in our office, we have posters that exemplify this, but we think of having a gas pedal versus a brake pedal. One of the very well-known MDs that studies ADHD and helps to talk to parents about their kiddos, who also is a sufferer of ADHD, if you will, as well, and he struggles with that also. He likes to describe kiddos with ADHD and sensory processing as having the brain that's like revved up like a jet engine, but having bicycle brakes that can't counteract the engine, if you will. So you got a jet engine for a brain and the brakes of a bicycle. So when you see this term gas pedal stuck on, that looks like some kiddo who has just slammed the gas pedal to the floor. They're revving 7,000, 8,000 RPMs, but have no governor to that, and they have no brakes to that. And what happens when we've got all gas and no brakes? We just have nowhere to go but to crash, right? And so these are going to be the kiddos that are constantly on the go. They're often characterized as the proprioceptive seekers. We see one little child that every day when he walks into this office, he has a huge ring right here of saliva where he's constantly got his shirt in his mouth. He's constantly got to be fiddling with something. He's jumping from one chair to the next. He doesn't mind falling down. In fact, it seems like he thrives on being thrashed around. These are the kiddos that when they come to your house, it's going to be rough and tumble for the next 3 or 4 hours, however long they're there, because they seek and need that extra stimuli on their body. So they're running and jumping and crashing into things, literally like the bull in the china shop. These are also going to be kiddos who crave high-paced foods, things with lots of sugar in them, things with lots of fat in them that give them extra energy, things that they actually may be allergic to, because we know now that allergic foods create an endorphin rush to give them more of that high-paced food that they need. They're also ones that love the high-paced technology. The technology actually allows them to focus, so you see them focusing on technology when they can't focus on anything else. And then those high-paced activities like to be running, jumping, etc. These kiddos are also the ones that really struggle when it comes to transition times when we're supposed to go from, let's say if we're in school, go from class time to lunch time to recess back to class time. Those transitions, each of those periods, are difficult for them to switch from one type of brain mode into the next type of brain mode without having some kind of meltdown or seeming like they're not behaving like their other fellow students or their other kids in the house. These are the ones that spin quickly throughout the day. When they do something wrong, oftentimes it's hard to get them to feel remorseful about those. They've got lots of distractions that they, I'm one of these guys, by the way, and you probably see that in this presentation. It's like, oh, squirrel. And then it takes me a minute to get back into focus. So these are the kiddos that bounce from one activity to the next, and hey, watch this. Oh my gosh, I'm doing this now. And they're just bouncing all over the office. These are the kiddos that I resonate the most with in the office. I love them. They're brilliant. They're smart. They're going to be wonderful leaders. Many of our leaders in our community and leaders in our nation have been, either diagnosed as these raging bull types or have at least self-professed that they're the ADHD type. But these are the guys that go on to be very bright leaders of our society, as long as we can help them to rein that in and learn to focus that energy that they possess. And so one of the other things I really want to bring home in this one is that, a lot of people think of ADHD or sensory processing as a disease. I want you to think of it as a trait. I want you to think of it as something your kiddo possesses, but that we can help to focus to be a lot better. And we're going to show you how we do that right now, because on the next slide, when it comes to these qualities or these characteristics that we see, it's like, well, Doc, how do you know which one my child is? Well, number one, they may check off some of the boxes in the history, but we like to use a technology in our office that literally measures it. And this technology we call the Insight scanning technology. And what this is it's a computerized system that we use to measure the health of the nervous system. And the reason we care is because ADHD, sensory processing, ASD, OCD, ODD, you name it, all of the alphabet soup, they're all at the core root neurological dysfunction. And so we have a technology in the office that allows us to measure the neurology and be able to see it, because as they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words. But these scans allow us to measure different parts of the nervous system, such as the communication and connection of the brain to the muscles, and the communication and connection of the brain to all of our organ systems, every organ, cell, and tissue. And so these allow us to detect hidden patterns of stress in the nervous system that may be driving the behavior that we're seeing in our children. One of the things that we talk about in our workshops that is oh so important to understand is that we see our kiddos behave in a way that may be the raging bull variety. But I want you to understand the outward behavior of your kiddo is directly driven from the internal sensation that they get from their spine and from their body, and it's the way that their brain comprehends that may be the problem. So we all have heard the statement, crummy in equals crummy out. So if you're not happy with the behaviors that you're seeing with their kiddos, or those behaviors are worrying you, or you struggle with them, I want you to understand it's not the behaviors that are a problem. It's the input that is causing the behavior that may be a problem, and it's the technology that allows us to measure that. So when we get those measurements, though, as we mentioned, all kids are unique. All adults are unique, and so it allows us to make a unique recommendation or specific recommendations based upon the patterns in those scans that we see, so that we can help to improve those neurologic patterns. And since the neurology is the basis for the way that our body functions as a whole, when neurology gets better, so does our function. So it also allows, when we use this technology in the initial stages of care, we can use it throughout the stages of of our little ones and our adults' care to monitor the progress that we were getting, so that if we're not getting the progress that we think we should or that the child deserves, we can then alter maybe what they're doing at home or our technique to help match whatever struggles we see through the process. So the technology that we use not only helps us to identify who these kiddos are and how their uniqueness is displayed in their bodies, but also allows us as clinicians, me and my associates here in the office, to really dial into what's working for them, what's not working for them, and how can we help them to be better on the backside. So the scans are really, really, really important for that process. This is what a scan looks like in a raging bull type of kiddo. And so what you'll notice in these scans, first and foremost, this is what we call our EMG. And EMG is short for electromyography. And at the top of the screen, what we can see is an outline of a body, and overlaying that body is a white pear-shaped pattern. That pattern represents the tone or the tension in the muscles that run down either side of the spine. And our technology measures down those muscles to understand how much contraction or tone each of the muscle groups has on either side of the spine as we move from top to bottom. And so when you look at that pear shape, what you should understand is that the length of the bars represent the amount of tone in the muscle. So up top in the neck, we have small bars getting wider and wider and then tapering back off. So we get this characteristic pear-shaped pattern. And then what you'll also notice is that the right side looks like a mirror image of the left, equaling balance and symmetry. And we want balance and symmetry when it comes to the postural tone of your kiddo's spine and nervous system. So when you look at those bottom scans, now we're looking at the scans of a raging bull kiddo, and what you'll notice is all of the white bars are now displayed as greens, blues, and reds. Greens, blues, and reds are not what we like to see. That indicates overly increased tone in those muscles. And so green equals mild increase in tone, blue is moderate increase in tone, red is severe increase in tone. And in this kiddo, you can see more reds than anything else. And that just means that that kiddo's muscles are turned into overdrive. So we say we have high energy levels in those muscles. And you can see just underneath those pictures, it says total energy is 338. Normal for an individual would be 100. So this kiddo is using, twofold amount or twofold plus amount of energy just to sit on a stool as we take these measurements. So these are very high energy levels, meaning that the body's using all this energy just to sit still. And we see that there's pretty good organization. The pattern in that, we see those red scans kind of flaring out and then getting, and then tapering back off. We see it looks fairly symmetrical, so it's organized. It's just really, really, really high energy. And we see this a lot in our Raging Bull kiddos. The next kiddo we want to talk about is the Drunken Bull. And I want you to think of, when you hear Drunken Bull, of just low organization, low tone, disorganized coordination, if you will, decreased motor abilities, decreased ability to play sports. These are also going to be the kiddos that lack a lot of focus, seem like they're daydreaming when they should be, paying attention. These are going to be the kiddos that you give them numerous concepts or numerous instructions and they have a difficulty connecting the dots. Let's say you give them, 2, 3, or 4 instructions before they get a chance to go out and play. And after they've done whatever the first thing it was you told them to, they can't remember the other 3. It's hard for them to connect the dots. And so you walk upstairs to see what they're doing. They should be cleaning their room, brushing their teeth, and putting on their pajamas. And the room's not clean. They haven't brushed their teeth. And they may be standing there admiring themselves in the mirror shirtless, whatever that may be. These are going to be the kiddos that seem to be a little bit more disconnected. When they do play sports, we notice that they're not going to be the most coordinated on the field or in whatever sport they're playing. If they're swimming, they're gonna look more like they're thrashing or flailing when the other kids are swimming beautifully. Instead of being a sensory seeker, like the ones who I told you about that want to bounce off the chairs and wrestle all the time and hard and tumble, which we normally characterize a lot of the boys as. These are going to be the ones who are sensory avoiding. These are going to be the ones when they're in a more stressful situation or a social situation where there's loud noises and things. They're going to be the ones that want to get away from that and find a corner, and they seem to withdraw internally. When it comes to little ones, little ones that we see that grow into the Drunken Bulls are the ones that are just very low tone babies. You pick them up, it seems like they have a long time to develop the ability to hold up their head and neck. Or you go to pick them up under their arms and it seems like there's nothing holding them from slipping through your arms. So just low tone when it comes to muscles. And when we look at that one on a scan, you see a huge difference in these scans now compared to the ones of the of the Raging Bull. Now, on the left, again, in the middle again is normal. We're now looking at the energy scans in the muscles on the left, and you can see a lot of color, not as much color as we saw in the Raging Bull, still a lot of reds, but what you're going to notice most about this one is that it looks very asymmetrical. So you can see where the red comes out in one side of the neck, it comes out more on one side than another. In the middle of the back, right between the shoulder blades, it comes out in the opposite direction, more on the other. And you can see this summarized very well with the picture on the far right where it says that the black line represents the outline of the muscular pattern. The white area on either side of the spine that looks like the pear is where the values should be. So you can see there's a lot of overactivity, but the coordination or the way that it should be, harmonious and equal, one side, right side to left side, is just very chaotic. I look at these types of scans and say, this is a lot of chaos that's being displayed in this body. And no wonder when they can't even control the muscles that are supposed to be the most basic, that hold us upright, when they can't coordinate those, how do we possibly expect them to coordinate, fine muscular control to right, or the muscular control to kick soccer balls in the goal from 20 or 30 yards? How do we expect them to be able to run and look at their feet and kick like they're supposed to when they can't even control their postural muscles? So these are going to be low organization kiddos, low coordination kiddos, moderate energy levels as opposed to high energy levels in our Raging Bull type variety. Now, our raging drunken bull. This is going to actually categorize probably the majority of the kids that we see here in the office, because again, all of them are unique, but most of them are going to have some level of high energy tone in those muscular systems, some discoordination. So these are the kiddos that have high energy, low organization, their gas pedal is stuck on, and yet they're still disconnected and seem to be less focused, inability to really pay attention and stay on task. So we have a combination of stress patterns. These are usually our most complex cases. They often take the longest to resolve because we're teasing apart the neurology one small piece by the other small piece. And so these are the kiddos that often get multiple diagnoses. Not only do they get ADHD or sensory processing, but they also get diagnosed in those ODD, which is the oppositional defiance disorder, or ASD. These are the kiddos that are now going to fall on spectrum, such as Asperger's and autism spectrum disorders, and they're going to be the most complex cases, often taking the longest to resolve when we start working with those kiddos. And this is what those type scans look like. Again, you can see areas of relatively normal tone where we see white values in the bottom of that little guy's scan on the left. But then you see areas right through the middle of the spine where we've got excessive amounts of energy, and it just looks like there's an uncoordination, more tone on one side than the other. You can see in the summation on the far right, it says the energy level of a 271 as opposed to 100, the organization of a 41. So these are going to be, what we often see in our offices. And so the solution here is this, our job as chiropractors is to better understand your child's neurology, because we live our lives through our nervous system. Those scans that we just showed you show how the nervous system may be in disarray or chaotic or disorganized. We call it disconnected. But these kiddos may not have low back pain, neck pain, headache type musculoskeletal symptoms that you would normally associate with chiropractic care, and that's okay. But what they do have is a nervous system that needs work, and as chiropractors, we are experts in correcting or detecting and then correcting nervous system dysfunction. So you can have a kiddo that may have some outward signs that they may be struggling, but no true symptomatology, if you will. And by doing these scans, we now have the knowledge to know how their bodies are struggling, what better might look like for them. And when better happens and the nervous system is reorganized and gets back into a place where there's less stress being displayed, I always say, what would better look like? What would better look like for your kiddo? What would better look like for your family if your kiddo was better? What would better look like if dad didn't struggle so much or mom didn't struggle so much and they were able to focus and they were able to deal? Well, the solution comes from this slide alone. Get your child or yourself scanned. So I always said knowledge is power, but it's useless without putting it into action. We have the ability here in the office to put this into action, show you a picture that is worth 1,000 words, and then give you the hope that when you can see this is where the struggles are, but we can show you what better looks like. How can we help deliver that child or that family to something that is better? So by detecting and seeing the stress patterns in your kiddo's nervous system, we can know with confidence and certainty that this is the struggles that they're dealing with. And when we can correct those, this is the hope and the promise that we can deliver upon, that life is going to get better, that those struggles are going to get better, that transitions are going to get better, that sleep and going to bed at night is going to get better, that meltdowns in the store are going to get better, that their grades are going to improve, that their teachers are going to be sending reports home now that the kiddos are performing so much better in school. Or if you happen to be homeschooled, which many right now are, mom is going to have an easier time throughout the day because the kiddos are going to be getting it better and they're going to be retaining this information. Their coordination improves. They now, don't stand out like a sore thumb when they're on the field with their peers. They're not made fun of as much, and their social skills just improve through, immensely. So we have a vision in our office to grow healthy children, not fix damaged adults. If you happen to be a damaged adult, you're welcome to come here. We want to help you with whatever it is that you're struggling with. But the only way to live out our dream of growing healthy kiddos is to detect these things early and often. And one of the most common questions we get is, well, doc, once you've found out that your kiddos are struggling, how long does it take? Here's my honest answer. I don't know. We don't know until we see the evidence on the scans as to what the struggles are in the kiddo's neurology. However, I will say this, what we do know, and there's a study out there to back this up, a study out of Harvard that studied how the nervous system changes with experience and influence. And the experience and influence to us is the chiropractic adjustment. And so the neurology when we're younger has a greater chance of changing at a faster rate than neurology does when we're older. So there's the old adage of you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I say that's BS. We can teach old dogs new tricks, and the word for that is called neuroplasticity. The nervous system comprehends its environment and then changes accordingly. Our job as chiropractors is to change the environment, meaning the input to the brain, and watch how the neurology changes over time, which we call neuroplasticity. But here's the take-home point again. The earlier we start, the easier it is to change the nervous system and the faster it happens. So if this message has hit home and it resonates with you and we have described one of your kiddos or we have described you, all you got to do is call our office. And we can be here to help. Again, we're located in Conway, South Carolina. Our number is 843-347-9103. I almost gave you my personal number. No harm, no foul. But anyway, 843-347-9103. Just call us, schedule an appointment, and we would love to help you. We would love to help your kiddos, get your family back on track. This summer is coming up, so we've got a lot of time we can work and prepare for next school year so that you can have an amazing year, set some amazing goals, and make sure that you hit them all. I hope this message has hit home. Share this with a friend, like our messages, share them throughout your community, and we hope you have a wonderful, happy evening and you've gotten a lot out of this. Have a great night.